Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going over a new poll that just came out of the state of Ohio that shows some potential matchups for both the Senate race and for the governor's race and some news surrounding the Ohio Senate race as well. So in the poll that was conducted, the Republican incumbent Senator Jon Husted defeats former Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown, but not by as much as you may think. In the Bowling Green YouGov poll, Husted only leads over Brown by 3 points, likely within the margin of error of the poll. We'll get into that in a second. As for Jon Husted versus former U.S. Representative Tim Ryan, Husted's leading here by 6 points. That one's likely outside the margin of victory of the poll. That's for the Senate race. For the governor's race, I should also mention, the Senate race is open due to the fact that J.D. Vance is now the vice president. His seat had to get vacated. Jon Husted got appointed by the governor, Mike DeWine, to fill that seat. Now Husted has to run for the rest of Vance's term in November of 26. For the governor's seat, which is going to be vacant due to Mike DeWine being term limited, Vivek Ramaswamy, who is running, leads by 5 points over Democrat Amy Acton. Ramaswamy leads over Tim Ryan in that poll as well by 7 points. Sherrod Brown was not included in the governor's side of things. I would imagine that would probably be a similar margin to the Husted +3 if it was Ramaswamy versus Brown. As for the Ohio governor primaries, on the Republican side of things, Ramaswamy holds a commanding 50-point lead over the rest of the Republican field, with the second place candidate Tressel getting 14% and Dave Yost, the Attorney General, getting 13%. On the Democratic side of things, for the Ohio governor primary, if Sherrod Brown were to run, he has a commanding lead over the Democratic field at 39% favored, but if Brown does not run, currently Acton is 20%, Tim Ryan has 16%. So that's the latest on that poll. So first, I'm going to look at the two races for Ohio, starting with the governor race. On the Republican side of things, as I mentioned, there are 3 candidates running. Right now, Vivek Ramaswamy is the leading candidate of Heather Hill, Vivek, and Dave Yost. Jim Tressel, the lieutenant governor, is another potential candidate that could run. Vivek already has the endorsement of Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and I fully expect he will win the Republican primary relatively pretty handily. The Democratic side of things is where things get more interesting. Amy Acton, the former director of the Ohio Department of Health, has already declared she is running, but what Sherrod Brown, the former U.S. Senator, and Tim Ryan, the former U.S. Rep, decide to do is where things get really interesting. If the poll is any indicator, it shows that Acton versus Ramaswamy should be a close race no matter what. But if Sherrod Brown were to be the candidate, Sherrod Brown may give the Democrats the really best chance at potentially winning an election in 2026 in the state of Ohio. Ohio, the state itself, has moved a lot to the Republican direction over the last 10 years or so, and it's more be considered a likely Republican state than a toss-up state at this point in time. But still, Sherrod Brown ran a very close race in 2024. I'll pull up the Senate map now, where Sherrod Brown was defeated by the Republican Bernie Moreno by only 3.6% though. So this is on the same ballot. Donald Trump won the state of Ohio, I believe, by 11 points. So it shows that Sherrod Brown is still very competitive for the Democrats in the state of Ohio and likely presents the Democrats the best chance at winning an election. Brown has currently expressed interest in running for either governor or Senate, but he has not yet said what he will be running for, and that could have huge ramifications. The predictions currently have Cook Political Report, Inside Elections, and Sablo Crystal Ball have the governor's race as either likely Republican or solid Republican for Vivek Ramaswamy or whoever the Republican nominee is at this time. For Vivek versus Amy Acton, there's been 2 polls conducted. One, the Bowling Green YouGov poll we just went over. Vivek was up 5, with 5% saying other. The other polls from the Democratic Aligned Public Policy polling back in February, which showed Acton leading by 1 point. For Vivek versus Tim Ryan, Vivek has led in both of these polls, including the Public Policy Democratic poll, where Vivek was up by 7 points in this poll and 6 points in that poll before that. I don't think there's a Vivek versus Sherrod Brown poll at the governor's side of things just yet. So as for the governor's race for 2026, right now in my most recent prediction video, I did what my predictions were, but I do have some of these races in the toss-up category. I just haven't moved them back yet. But right now there's 6 governor's races that I think are battlegrounds. Ohio, I wouldn't put it as a battleground yet. I think it's still a likely Republican state for Vivek at this time. Likely means that it could be 5-point margin of victory to up to 15-point margin of victory. I probably have Vivek winning right now by around 6.5%. So closer on the likely side, closer to the likely and the lean than safe side. But I do have Vivek favored to win the Ohio governor's race as likely Republican right now. So that's the governor's race. Now for the Senate race, where things could get very interesting. I thought for sure Jon Husted, who was appointed by Mike DeWine. He's an ally of DeWine. He's not really the most MAGA Republican, but he's not really the most moderate Republican either. Husted has already gotten the endorsement of President Donald Trump for re-election. So I figured, okay, Husted has the support of the governor DeWine and the support of President Trump. So more likely than not, he's not going to have a very tough time with getting reelected, and I don't think it should be much of a problem. However, Sherrod Brown really complicates things. The former U.S. Senator from 2007 to 2025, he just lost a very close race, as I mentioned, in 2024, and he likely would like a Senate seat back in Ohio. Now, he can't get his Senate seat back until Bernie Moreno's term will be up, which is going to be in 2030, but he can try and get what former J.D. Vance's Senate seat was, now Jon Husted's Senate seat, back. He's expressed interest in running for this race. I would bet Sherrod Brown runs for Senate or governor. More so on the side, I think Sherrod Brown would run for Senate and would give the Democrats a better chance at winning a Senate seat in Ohio if he were to run. As for the predictions for this race, this one's kind of a little bit all over the map. Inside Elections has it as solid. Cook, Political, and Sabato have it as likely Republican. Race to the White House has it as a toss-up. The two polls that have been done for Jon Husted versus Sherrod Brown, both of them by YouGov and Bowling Green. This one from back in February had Husted up by 6 points, but this one in April only has it as a 3-point race with a 4-point margin of error. So Husted versus Brown may actually be a very close race that could get very competitive if this were to happen. If it's Jon Husted versus Tim Ryan, which last time I checked, Tim Ryan officially ruled out running for Senate in 2026, which could be a sign that Sherrod Brown may potentially be running if Tim Ryan is choosing not to run for Senate. But Husted seemed to be winning by about 6 points or so over Tim Ryan for that matchup as well. Sherrod Brown versus Jon Husted would be very, very interesting. Right now in the Senate map for 2026, there's about 4 Senate seats that I have as battlegrounds at this time. New Hampshire, I have lean Democrat. Ohio, I have as likely Democrat. If Sherrod Brown does declare, just for the side of caution, I would move Ohio down to lean Republican. Not out of thinking that Jon Husted can't win, but out of respect of how good of a politician Sherrod Brown is in the state of Ohio. Don't forget that Sherrod Brown just lost his Senate race in 2024 in what ended up being a great night for the Republicans. Sherrod Brown will be running in a midterm election in 2026 in what's supposed to be a very good night for the Democrats, and what everything I've seen with President Trump's approval ratings and the congressional ballot vote numbers, 2026 is on track to still be a very good night for the Democrats. And typically that means the Democrats will likely gain seats in the U.S. House. They may gain a governor's seat or two, though that one I'm a little bit less sure about. But the Senate map side of things, the Democrats could potentially be in a good position to pick off a few Senate seats. But let's have the conversation here. Can Sherrod Brown actually win in 2026? I would argue Sherrod Brown could win in 26. I don't think he will, but I think it is possible. I do think Ohio is still a likely Republican state, and with Sherrod Brown being the Democrat, it could move under 5 points, but I think Ohio would still remain in Republican hands. But let's talk about what Sherrod Brown running does for the Democrats overall. If Sherrod Brown makes the race close, where a bunch of polls show it's under 5 points, what does that mean? The Republicans, with 51 Senate seats right now, before factoring in the battlegrounds, the Republicans cannot afford to lose Ohio. Because if they lose Ohio, that would put the Democrats at 46 Senate seats, Republicans at 50, and that's without getting into any of the battlegrounds. Republicans would still hold the U.S. Senate, they would still hold a majority, but they currently have 53 Senate seats. If they lose every battleground seat plus Ohio, then they're down to 50. Then the Democrats will be in a very prime position going into 2028 trying to flip the U.S. Senate, where there will be some close elections up in Wisconsin, which the Republican Ron Johnson holds. He could lose that seat, and the Democrats then have the majority. So the Republicans cannot afford to lose Ohio. So what happens if the Democrats could win it? Well, Republicans are likely going to put a lot of money into Ohio to ensure they don't lose that. But not everything's in a vacuum. If the Republicans throw money into Ohio to defend it, that could mean less money in Georgia or North Carolina or Michigan or Maine. What if the Democrats have a 2018 type of environment in 2026, which, again, I cannot stress enough, is not outside the realm of possibility? Now, in 2018, Joe Manchin won in West Virginia. That won't be happening this time around. There's a Democratic Senator Tester in Montana. I don't think that will be happening. But Democrats won in Michigan. That could certainly happen. Democrats won in Maine. That could definitely happen. The map is different. But the Democratic environment doing well in the toss-up states is certainly very, very possible. So as for 2026, if Ohio were to become competitive, that could put the Republicans on defense a little too much, where maybe Susan Collins falls in a very close race in Maine. Maybe Democrats hold on to Michigan in a very narrow margin, which I expect them to do right now. Maybe Brian Kemp decides not to run for Senate and Jon Ossoff faces another Republican. He's able to win re-election. And then let's say Roy Cooper runs in North Carolina against Tom Tillis. Roy Cooper wins a very close race. This is probably the Democrats' best case scenario, but this puts the Democrats at 49 Senate seats, Republicans 51. Democrats gain 2 Senate seats, Republicans lose 2. This would be a very great night for the Democrats. And then Sherrod Brown running in Ohio, if Sherrod Brown could do the unthinkable and flip Ohio, one, I would be very surprised if he did, but this would put it at 50-50 in what could honestly not be a better night for the Democrats. The question will be, what does 2026 end up being? For now, I'm leaving Ohio as likely Republican. I don't think this is going to happen with 50-50 at this time, but you can see very quickly how things start to unravel if Democrats and Republicans land their top recruits or don't land their top recruits in their respective elections. Right now, it seems if Sherrod Brown were to run in Ohio and Roy Cooper in North Carolina, the Democrats are landing their top recruits, where Republicans have struck out on getting a top recruit in New Hampshire and maybe striking out with Brian Kemp in Georgia, not getting him to run. The Republicans could be in for a rough 2026. So these poll numbers out of the state of Ohio, yes, the Republicans are leading, and that's a good news. You'd always rather be ahead than behind, but there could be a little bit of optimism for Democrats in these polls, specifically in the 2026 Ohio Senate race. But I'm interested to hear what you have to think. Leave a comment below, tell me your thoughts. Make sure to give the video a like. Also make sure to click subscribe, so I post at least 2 new videos every day you're not going to want to miss. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next video.